Hi everyone, again welcome to the next lecture of the LPS class. The LPS is essentially um, the programming languages that we are going through. As you know, we started with the Unix, we covered Perl, then we moved on to Tickle and TK, explaining some of the advanced concepts in Tickle and TK. Now we are actually going to Python. We already finished a couple of lectures. I hope you remember. I just wanted to recap what we did in the last lecture. So we went through the very basic stuff, which is essentially how do we initially write a Python program, basically for just printing something. And then we talked about, so in this one we had covered several topics like variables, how the variables are, what are the different types of variables, how do you actually print them, how do you actually input some value into the variable, and what essentially are the variables. So we covered several key things, and then we also went through like some operators. What are the keywords that are reserved in the language which we cannot use for variables, even like variable naming rules that we covered in the last lecture. Then we also talked about how do we form those variables, etc. And then we went to some conditionals, essentially like so conditionals if, else, and else. I hope you remember those things basically when we talked about that. Then we also talked about functions. The functions are essentially starts with the def as the keyword, and then followed with function name, and then we go into the functions. One thing we also talked about in that context is the scope of a variable, how the scope cannot be cannot go into the function itself when you define the variable, and how Python actually, even if you put the same name, Python actually adds a new variable and then assigns values to that variable, and then again the scope of the variable basically like finishes when it's only the extent of the function. So when it exits out of the function, all the variables are gone, it's all like thrown away. And see, we saw some examples as to how this affects your programming. We also saw like how to get around this by using this keyword called global inside the function with the variable name, so that it you can actually pass the variables that are outside of the function into the function and then manipulate them. So I think that was a good introduction, essentially like what we covered. Now I think we will go into today's lectures. Basically, I will be talking about iterations. So let's go into that. So this is the new one that we are starting today. So without much ado, I want to start that chapter on iterations. So let's begin. So the iteration consists of two major things, basically while loops and for loops, and then we also have a range function which we will talk about, and then we need to also like we can do some controls inside the flow. So the flow control within the loops such as break, continue, pass, and then the loop else. So we will talk about those things today. So first of all, the while loop, essentially it is repeats a statement or a group of statements while a given condition is true. It tests the condition before executing the loop body. So once it tests, it basically starts running the loop body, and then every time the body finishes, it again checks for the condition whether the condition is still valid. If the condition is true, it goes ahead and then does that loop until the condition becomes false. The for loop, on the other hand, that's actually it is executes a sequence of statements multiple times and abbreviates the code that manages the loop variable. So the for loop is simply like, I mean, you can say like, okay, I want it to be n number of times or m number of times, and then basically like, I mean, it the loop variable can be abbreviated to be some fixed kind of quantity. One thing with both these conditions are basically like there are nested loops. Basically you can use while followed by for followed by while. So these kind of things can be like nested. So once finishes, then this will finish, then this whole loop will finish. Now the definition for these flow control, essentially the break statement, this terminates the loop statement and transfers the execution to the statement immediately following the loop. So whenever this break condition basically that is satisfied, the loop completely is broken, and then the flow control just goes to the next statement past the loop. The continue is more graceful in the sense that it causes the loop to skip the remainder of its body and immediately retest the condition prior to the reiterating. So say like, I mean, you have a while, and then you have x, y, z, then if A equal to B, and then you have break, then you have again C, D, F, and if this is your while loop, then this A equal to B happens, and then immediately like the loop is broken, and then the condition is retested and it goes back to here. In the break, actually it falls through and then goes to a next statement, say another if or something, it goes to that, whereas in a continue statement it breaks and then goes back to the top, and then it tests the thing and then again goes around and around. Now the pass statement is this is used when a statement is required syntactically, but you do not want any command or code to execute. So if you put an else, then you can say like pass, which is basically if A is not B, then it just goes to C. Yeah. So this is basically like it's just for the syntax purposes we use the pass. Okay. So now let's look at some of these conditions. So here example of a while loop, we define I is 1 while I less than 4 colon, we say print I and then I plus equals to 1. We know that this is the increment operator that we studied earlier. So the output will be like, since I is 1 it becomes 1, and then here I gets incremented to 2, and it goes back, and again I less than 4, that is still true, so it executes, so it prints 2, and then it adds one more, so I becomes 3, and then it goes back, and now still this condition is true, so it goes down and it prints 3, and then now I equal to 4, I becomes 4, then it goes to this loop, and then it says basically I is less than 4, it's false, so it just comes out. So it only prints 1, 2 and 3. Okay, in example for essentially, so we specify for I in range 3. This is basically it's the same as 0 to 3, and then we say print I, and then a comma. Essentially, like these are the two things that you want to make sure. So basically, like in this case, I is printed as 0 because it's 0. It starts with 0, 1, and 2, and then when it is 3, it is out of the range, so that it stops printing. Basically, like I mean, it increments, and then when it becomes 3, it is the same, so it goes outside. So one of the key thing is this range function. So here is the definition: range n returns the list of integers from 0 to n minus 1. So here it returns actually like 0 to 2. If you specify one additional number, for example here it's 0, 10, 2, this returns in an increment of this inside this. So the incrementer is already built into the range command. So this will return 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8 because it starts from 0 to 10 with an increment of 2. That's how we should read it. So if you don't specify, then it's assumed that it is like 0 through n with an incremental of 1, incremental 1. So range this can be made into a shortcut as range n. For anything else, you need to specify all the numbers. Okay. So here is much more complicated loop. So while some statement, you can also define like for some item in object. Now there are some statements, and then we do a test 1 and then cause it to break. So when test 1 is true, it basically goes and then goes outside. Now the test 2 basically it's a continue. So now when test 2 fails, it basically goes back, or test 2 passes, it goes back to the top of the loop. And then we also use a pass statement, which is test 3. So when test 3 is true, it does nothing and basically like control loop goes to the next. So here it's actually an else condition. So now let's look at the loop else. The else statement after the loop is useful for taking care of the case where the item isn't found in a list. For example here search items dot py. So for I in range 3, which is 0, 3, 1. If I equal to 4, then we print I found 4 and then break. Otherwise print don't care about I. Now obviously like I mean in this case I will never be 4. So after the loop, after going through the 3 iterations, it is going to exit the loop without anything, because here basically it's like it says I don't care about and I. So don't care about 0, 1, 2. So those things get printed out by the statement. But now we have to also like print out. So basically, like I mean, for this particular loop, if there is an else, basically then we can actually like I mean once it never hit the break, then we can actually like do something. So here we put that break. So if it does not hit the break, then the else gets printed, and that says basically I searched but never found 4. So this is the example for using the loop else, which is an interesting command for in Python. in more details. So one thing is basically like I mean you can use the for loop with collection data types. The collection data types are explained in the next chapter, and this can be iterated through what are known as iterables. So for example here the simple one is for name in this particular collection. So and if the first letter, which is denoted as the name 0, is M, then we say print starts with M, including the name. Otherwise we print name does not start with M. So this prints for Motasem and Mika, it prints first one, and then for Ryan it prints the next one. So we'll learn about some of these lists and strings in the later part of the this lecture. So now let's see what kind of what is parallel traversals. So for this we use another command called zip for doing the parallel traversal. So what is a parallel traversal? Use things together. We say like I mean okay, AB for AB in zip these two lists A and B. We can say like print A, then the star B is A times B. So now what Python does is it groups these two together, and these two together. So that's where we can traverse two lists in parallel. This is all very useful because when we have like coordinate systems where you need to come up quickly with an addition of two coordinates, you can actually like do it in just one command rather than actually sending in multiple commands. So here the output is going to be like 4, 10 and 18 because it's multiplying 1 times 4, then 2 times 5 and then 3 times 6. So that is pretty much that covers on the iterators and how we can perform iterations. Now we will go into the strings as a variable type. So we will talk about the string basics, the escape sequences, slices is another key concept, and then we'll do some block codes, some formatting, and then the string methods. So strings are delimited by single or double quotes. Both of these we saw in Tickle. One thing is basically that Python is actually uses Unicode. So strings are not limited to just ASCII characters. So Unicode has much more characters than just ASCII characters. ASCII characters amounts to probably about 65 of them. So here we can use much more than that. The empty string is denoted by having nothing in between the delimiters. So here a single quote delimiter, nothing between that. That's an empty string. We can access the elements in the string with the square brackets, the indexing starting from 0. So if you say like say the string and then the third element, actually it's 1 0 1 2 3, so that is k. K gets printed out. And then the other thing is even the strings are immutable. We saw this for the variables. Variables are immutable in the sense that we cannot change the value of the variables. Here it's the same thing. The strings are immutable, so that you cannot assign say snake 3 to p and expect that doesn't work, because snake 3 is always going to be k. To access the last element of a string, we can have two ways. Basically, you can, for example, in this snake, if you want to access this one, that's 0 1 2 3 4 5. You can say either snakes 5, or you can also say -1. So the -1 gets the last element of the string, and then the negative indices work backwards. So this is -1 -2 -3 -4 -5. So they work this way, and then the positive go this way. So the strings actually also have the concept of being raw string, and usually the raw string starts with the character R before the delimiter. So if you say like R, then the delimiter some string, that is a raw string, and they are interpreted literally. So there is you cannot change anything there. Now you can convert any numbers into the string and vice versa. For example, we can say like int of string 42, that's the actual value 42, and then string of 20.4 now appears within the quotes. We see. We can also compare strings with is equal operator, that is the double equal to. This is just like in C and C++. So we don't have to write specific command for the strings. In Perl we saw that actually like this is. So to write that, basically we just say basically A equal to B, and then that returns true. Now a good thing in Python is that Python provides the way to increment um, the or add two strings or append a string to another one by just using this addition symbol. So if you do a Chattanooga plus Tennessee now, and we want to print the location, it just prints like with a space. Now let's look at some of the escape characters and what their meanings are. So these are the escape sequences. So the backslash is a very common one. That's basically for escape, and then the meaning is just backslash. So backslash backslash would be just backslash. So that's the thing. Now quotation is also like the same thing. So this escape sequence is basically the backslash. And if you say like backslash n is for the new line, and then backslash t is for tab. Now backslash n and id is the Unicode database ID for that particular thing. Now we can also represent the 16-bit hex by just going like escape escape and then lowercase u followed by the hexadecimal number. If you specify an uppercase and followed by hexadecimal number, it treats that as a Unicode 32-bit. And then if you specify like backslash x and then hh, and that is the hex digits notation or values for hh, and then backslash 0 is a null bit, so it doesn't end the string. And then if you just specify like a n and n, this is actually octal notation. That is n is within n has to be from 0 to 7. In octal, that is how it is. Then some other sequences are also supported. Basically, for example, backslash c x is a shorthand for control x. And then there is also like a vertical tab that you can instantiate, which is backslash b instead of backslash t. Similarly, like there are plenty of other characters because it's a Unicode. It has a rich set of various characters. Now let's talk about the block quotes. We can use triple quotes to represent multiple line strings. So here we have a triple quotes, and then basically like all the way up to here. This entire thing is treated as just one string and gets assigned to Lincoln, but it works because of this triple quotes here. Now we talked about the concatenation operator before I go into the string. There's also a repeater operation which is essentially the star, similar to tickle. So if you say like my name and Stu, then it prints basically my name, my name. So one thing that I also want you to understand is we talked about this things. You can actually like specify them as slices. So you can have like a small slice of like 0 to 3, which basically is here. It's SNAK. So those kind of slicing is also possible. Now let's go talk about the string formatting. And we specify percentage greeting. So it replaces this basically hello here. So it becomes hello, welcome to Python. The formatting actually creates new string because as you know the strings are immutable, so you cannot change it. So the format actually creates a new string. So a printf style formatting also works. We can format multiple variables into one string by collecting them into a triple. So basically a comma separated list delimited by parentheses and after the percentage character. So here we say basically the grade for percentage S is percentage 4 1 F. So here we can actually see how that will get translated. So here basically it specifies Tom, and then this number gets converted into 4 plus 1, so that is 76.1. So basically like I mean it takes and then based on the format string it formats it. So here it's 4 digits prior to 0 and then 1 after 0. So it formats it as 76.1. It rounds it. The string formats can also refer to dictionary keys. So again here percentage name, so got a grade something, and then name Bob grade and is 2.5, and then it's again it's a integer, so it basically converts it into 2. So some more formatting. Basically percentage C is for character, percentage S for string conversion. We have str prior to the formatting, so we write as str and then whatever some number, and then basically like that is formatted. Percentage I is for signed decimal integer. Percentage D is for unsigned decimal integer. and then percentage uppercase X is for the hexadecimal, and then the lowercase x is for the lower integer or lower case letters which are used inside the hexadecimal. So if you want to format this into a, or say like 15, the first one, which is the uppercase X, will format this as uppercase F, and then whereas the lowercase will format this as lowercase f. So now let's look at how we can step through the string. We already saw this some of the stuff. So we have to treat the string as a collection of characters. So it has some properties in common with the other collections like lists and tuples. So we can step through this. For example, like we can define like C in this string, print C, that prints one character at a time, because that's what the C takes the value of. And we can also do some checking, basically like is A in snakes, then the answer comes as true. So now let's look at the slices in some more details. So here we can actually give snakes 1 colon 3 that returns basically the first two, actually like the second and the third rather, that is n. And here actually like both are optional basically. If you specify just A and then without anything, it just provides a copy of the string. Okay, now let's talk about the string method. The strings, again, it is a class with many built-in methods. These methods create new strings that create the new strings that need to be assigned basically. So you need to assign a string variable to these methods basically, or when you're using the method, and so it goes into that particular variable. And then the strings are immutable, so you cannot change basically, so you cannot change in place. That's the reason why you need to assign it to a new variable. So let's look at some of these methods basically, and these are all built-in methods to manipulate strings. So the first one is capitalize. This capitalize, basically it capitalizes the first letter of the string. So it capitalizes first letter. Now what about center? The center actually has an argument width. We can also provide another argument called fill character. And what it does is it returns a space padded string centered to the total width columns, basically total of the width columns. So whatever that width that we specify, and we can actually specify these fill characters. If you don't specify, it is a space. Otherwise, it can fill with whatever that is. So it treats the string, it expands the string and puts those fill characters in the middle, and it expands it to fill the width essentially. So this is another nifty command. Now we can also say count. We give like a substring, a start index, and the end index basically. Here it counts how many times this substring occurs in the string or in a substring of the string if starting index, beginning and ending index end are given. So these are two optional ones. So if you don't specify and basically count substring, it just sees how many times the substring occurs in the string. If not, it actually now gives basically like, I mean, it also meaning like if you are giving both the start index and the end index, it starts from that start index and ends at the end index and look for the substring. So it takes a substring and then it massages that to find the substring specification inside the count. Then we also have find, and the find is also again a substring, a start and then end. These two are optionals. The find again, if it determines if this particular substring occurs in a string or in a substring of the string starting from start to the end, and it returns the index if found, otherwise it returns -1. So it returns index where this substring is occurring, or -1. Then there are other ones also. We can also like decode and encode strings. We can along with this we can also see another one which is ends with, which is ends with, which has a suffix beginning and ending. This actually determines if the string or the substring of string ends with a suffix. Returns true if ends with a suffix, or it returns false. It falls otherwise. Is digit again, it is opposite of that basically, where it returns true if the string contains only digits and false otherwise. Is lower is basically if at least one cased character and all cased characters are in the lower case. And then we also have is numeric is another one, so that's another one. And then the join is basically like to take multiple sequences and join them. So and there are others also. So we also have another method called the replace. It really doesn't replace. Again, go back to our first principle, which is strings are immutable, but it makes new strings with the replacement performed. So here is an example. We define a variable, string variable a with a b c d e f g, and then another variable b, which is now we are going to call it as a dot replace c with uppercase C. So now if you want to print b, it's basically a b uppercase C d e f, whereas the a is simply a b c d e f g. Okay, so and then there are more examples of the methods. So I'll go through this one. So here we can actually like say that basically, so we define a variable a, this whole sentence, and then now we say like find essentially. So we define the location to be a find boring, so it's right here. So whatever the number of characters to this, that's stored in the location. Now what we need to do is we should add that whatever the location, we add fun to it. And then now we print a. Actually like here it should be the replace command essentially, not we have to replace this with nothing and then add fun to it. And then we define another one b, which is and then we say like join cars, trucks, motorcycles. So the and is applied to join these different strings. So it becomes cars and trucks and motorcycles. Then if we say like so now C is defined as a split of B or B dot split, and we print C, it prints each one as a different element in the string list or string collection. And then if we specify again like we split the string B, but with this particular string, so then it takes out that string and only reports cars, trucks and motorcycles. So here we are using like several things, find, there is also like replace, then and then join, and then split basically. So all these are different string methods. Now let's talk about the regular expressions. The regular expressions are a way to do pattern matching. The basic concept is pretty much it's the same as Java or Perl that we are used to this. So the common regular expression in a syntax, the dot matches any character but new line. then the caret matches the beginning of the string, and then dollar matches the end of the string. So these are the things that we already know from Perl, and we carried over to Tickle also for the same syntax. And then a star is any number of whatever comes before this. So X star will be like X, 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 whatever number of X. And then plus is essentially like only one item. So if it is A and plus, or this will be A and matches only those. Now there is also like the OR function basically, which means just the OR of it's either the first string or the second string. You can match either one of them. And then when we escape W, that is basically like any alphanumeric characters, and then escape D becomes any digit, and escape S becomes the non-white space, and then uppercases are just exactly opposite of these. So that's you just have to just remember that. So uppercase W matches non-alphanumeric, D non-digits, and then uppercase S is non-white space. And then if you specify it in the square bracket, basically A-E-I-O-U, it matches any of A, E, I, or I, O, or U. So any letters it can match. But if you don't specify the square bracket, it exactly matches that string, which is junk. So some regex examples essentially, like I mean, so here this is basically like we are saying import RE stands for the importing the regular expression module. So once we export the regular expression module, so we specify basically like in file we are opening this text test.txt in a read mode, and then we for the lines essentially like I mean we just start reading the line with this method read lines. So just watch out. I'll be talking about some of these things basically like the method, but this will be like coming in the future. But this is again another method. You can see basically read lines is a method that is applicable for file structure, and then that is why we are calling the in file and then read lines. And then once we read all the lines, we just say basically like close. Now we can actually replace all PCI3 with PSI4s. So the way that we can do is like we can say match string the regular expression compile. So this is the method for the regular expression, and then basically like it's a raw string that is specified as PSI3, and then we also specify another method, the ignore case in RE. So it ignores the case and it compiles this. And then for the lines that we read here, we use the match string, and then we say like sub R PSI4 and then the line, and then we print those lines. So basically like I mean this means that we read all the lines and we replaced anywhere where we can see PSI3 with PSI4. Couple of things about that example. We needed to compile the first of all the regular expression module needs to be imported, that is using the import command. Then we also need to compile the regular expression with the RE compile, and then the R character means the raw string that we already saw that basically, so we don't have to escape every special character. And then the ignore case is another it's an optional argument. Another would be like dot all basically, which is like it matches all the strings essentially. We also have another one called multi-line, which is REM, which makes the caret and dollar match after and before each line break in the string. So now let's talk some more about the regular expressions. The regular expression compile is an optional step. It's more efficient if we are doing a lot of regular expressions. We can also do just regular expression search and then regex and the subject basically, or even regular expression match. That's also we can do. That's an alternate syntax for without doing the compile. And then the match only looks for match at the beginning of the line. It does not need to match the whole string, just the beginning. The search attempts to match throughout the string until it finds a match. The find all regex the subject returns the array of all known overlapping matches. So alternatively, we can do basically like find filter with regex and object and the subject. And then the other thing that to note is also that match, search, find iteration, find all, they do not support an optional third argument for regex matching plans. You can start regex with question mark 1, question mark s, question mark n, etc. So now we come to the split command. So the regex split basically returns an array of strings. So we saw that basically like how we can split. The strings are all the parts of the subject besides the parts that match. If two matches are adjacent in subject, then the split will include an empty string. So here is one example, like I mean lines set as upgrade PSI 3 to PSI 4. PSI 3 was an excellent program. So we say like match string PSI 3, we get a match, and then for each of these match strings we just print I. So so the result will be this much, and then it gets this much, and then it also splits here. So this is also gone, and then up to here. So now you can see how the answer or how this I is being printed. Basically, it prints upgrade the as 1, then program to PSI 4 is 1, and then was an excellent program is the third one. So let's actually continue the remainder of the strings in the next lecture. So there are a few more things that we need to cover before we can go into the next chapter. Okay, thank you very much, and then we will talk more